Hey everyone, welcome to your personalized deep dive, all about C15. You know that saturated fatty acid that's been
Oh, yeah.
making waves in the health and nutrition world?
Yeah.
Well, we're diving deep today into a YouTube video that you shared by Nick Norwitz. And let me tell you, it's a fascinating one. We're going to break down exactly what C15 is all about, explore the research, and see if it really lives up to the hype. Ready to dive in.
Absolutely.
So first things first, what exactly is C15? The video mentions it's an odd chain saturated fatty acid.
Right.
What makes that so special?
So most of the fats we hear about, like, those in olive oil or butter are what we call even chain. But C15, with its 15 carbon atoms, it breaks that mold. And that structural difference seems to have some pretty significant implications for our health.
Okay, I'm starting to see why this is interesting. So why are people calling C15 an essential nutrient? What does that even mean?
Well, for a nutrient to be considered essential, our bodies can't produce enough of it on their own. So we need to get it from our diet. And there's growing evidence that C15 might fit the bill. Studies have linked low C15 levels to several health concerns, which has researchers pretty excited.
But isn't all saturated fat? Like, aren't we supposed to avoid it? I mean, that's what we've been hearing for years.
Right, and that's where things get really interesting. It seems like our well-intentioned efforts to reduce saturated fat intake may have backfired. We might have unintentionally created a C15 deficiency in a lot of people.
Oh, wow. How so? Where do we normally get C15 in our diets?
Think full-fat dairy. Milk, cheese, yogurt. Those are some of the best sources of C15. But as you know, there's been a big push to cut back on saturated fat. So people have switched to low-fat options. Ironically, some recent studies are suggesting that full-fat dairy might not be as bad for us as we thought.
So we demonized full-fat dairy
Hmm.
and potentially deprived ourselves of an important nutrient. That's a pretty big oops moment, wouldn't you say?
It does make you wonder, and the implications could be significant, especially considering some of the potential benefits researchers are linking to C15.
So let's dive into those benefits. The video mentions a link between C15 and insulin resistance. Can you unpack that for us?
Of course, studies have shown that people with higher C15 levels tend to have a lower risk of developing insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. It seems like C15 might play a role in helping our cells use insulin more efficiently.
It's a big deal considering the global rise in diabetes.
Mhm.
Anything else? The video also mentioned something about fatty liver in children.
Yes, that's another area of active research. There's evidence to suggest that kids who consume more full-fat dairy, and thus likely have higher C15 levels, may have a reduced risk of developing fatty liver disease.
Hold on. Are you saying that full-fat milk might actually be better for kids than the low-fat options often pushed in schools?
It's a controversial idea, but that's what some of the research is pointing towards, and it all ties back to that potential C15 deficiency we talked about.
Wow, this is really turning our understanding of fat on its head. I have to admit, though, I'm still a bit hesitant about full-fat dairy. What about the risks of heart disease?
That's a valid concern, and it's important to remember that full-fat dairy also contains other types of saturated fat, not just C15. More research is needed to tease apart the effects of different types of saturated fats on heart health.
So it's about finding that balance right.
Yeah.
Not necessarily going all in on full-fat everything, but also not fearing it completely.
Exactly. It's about being mindful of our choices and considering the bigger picture.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. The video mentioned a pretty fascinating connection between C15 and dolphins.
Ah, yes, the Navy dolphin study. It's quite an intriguing story, and it actually played a key role in highlighting the potential importance of C15 for human health.
Tell us more. How did studying dolphins lead to all this C15 buzz?
It all started with a scientist named Stephanie Venn Watson, who was studying how to help Navy dolphins age healthier. Surprisingly, she found that dolphins with lower C15 levels tended to have more health problems.
What kind of health problems are we talking about?
Things like metabolic syndrome, fatty liver, even signs of Alzheimer's disease. It was pretty remarkable considering how different dolphins are from humans.
That's wild. Dolphins and Alzheimer's, who would have thought? But how does any of that relate to us?
Well, Venn Watson and her team started to see some intriguing parallels between the dolphin findings and human health. It raised the question, could C15 deficiency be playing a role in similar age-related diseases in people?
So the dolphins were like the canary in the coal mine, alerting us to the potential importance of C15.
In a way, yes. Their health problems seem to mirror what we see in humans with low C15 levels. It was a pivotal moment in C15 research.
Okay, that's pretty mind-blowing. But I'm curious, how does C15 actually work in the body? What's the magic behind its potential benefits?
The video mentions a model called cellular fragility, which I think is a pretty good way to understand C15's role. Basically, C15 helps to strengthen our cells, particularly the membranes that surround them.
So it's like C15 is reinforcing our cells,
Yeah.
making them more resilient to damage.
Exactly. Think of it like reinforcing steel in concrete. C15 makes our cells stronger and less likely to break down, which is crucial for overall health and longevity.
That's a great analogy. It makes a lot of sense. Now, before we move on, I have to ask, what's the deal with this whole dolphin cheese thing mentioned in the video?
Haha, yes, the dolphin cheese. It was a humorous aside. But it does raise the question, what does dolphin milk taste like?
Right. I'm suddenly very curious. Maybe we can track down a marine biologist willing to to make some. Just kidding, of course.
Oh.
All right, let's dive back into the serious stuff. If we want to make sure we're getting enough C15, what are the best sources beside full-fat dairy?
Well, as we mentioned, full-fat dairy, particularly pecorino cheese, is a top source. But certain types of seafood are also good options. Mullet catfish and sea bass, for example, are particularly rich in C15.
Interesting. I've got to admit, I never thought of those as being high in any particular fat. But now I'm definitely going to be paying more attention to my C15 intake. Anything else we should know about C15 before we move on?
Actually, there's one more fascinating tidbit from the video. Did you know that the way cows are fed can actually affect the C15 content of their milk?
Really? Tell me more.
Cows that are grass-fed tend to produce milk with higher C15 levels compared to cows fed a corn-based diet.
So grass-fed dairy is even better for boosting C15. It's like there's always another layer to this nutrition puzzle.
Exactly. What we feed our livestock can have a big impact on the nutritional content of the food they produce. This C15 story is a perfect example of that. And believe it or not, this story gets even more interesting when we consider the connection between C15 and the endocannabinoid system.
Okay, I'm officially hooked. Let's take a quick pause here. And when we come back, we'll unravel the C15 and endocannabinoid system connection, and we'll explore what all this C15 research really means for you. Stay with us.
Welcome back. I hope you're ready for more because this C15 story is about to take a pretty wild turn.
I'm all ears. Before the break, you hinted at a connection between C15 and the endocannabinoid system. Now, I know the endocannabinoid system is involved in all sorts of important functions, from mood and sleep to appetite and inflammation.
Yeah.
But how does C15 fit into that puzzle?
That's the million-dollar question, and researchers are just starting to piece it together. It turns out that a metabolite of C15, called pentadecanoylcarnitine, can actually activate certain endocannabinoid receptors.
Okay, hold on. A metabolite. Can you break that down for us non-scientists?
Sure. Think of a metabolite as a byproduct of something your body processes. So when your body breaks down C15, one of the things it produces is this pentadecanoylcarnitine, which then goes on to interact with the endocannabinoid system.
So C15 is indirectly influencing this system. That plays a huge role in keeping our bodies balanced. That's pretty incredible. But what does it actually mean for our health?
It's still early days, but this connection opens up a whole new world of possibilities. If C15 can indeed modulate the endocannabinoid system, it could have therapeutic benefits for a wide range of conditions. We're talking about things like chronic pain, anxiety, mood disorders, even sleep problems.
Now, that's a lot to unpack. But if C15 has this much potential, why haven't we heard about it before? It seems like something that would be all over the news.
Good question. Remember, research on C15 is still relatively new. It takes time for scientific discoveries to make their way into the mainstream. Plus, you know how it is with Nutrition Science Act. There's always a lot of conflicting information out there.
That's true. It seems like every other day there's a new superfood or a new study telling us what we should and shouldn't be eating. It can be hard to know what to believe.
Absolutely. That's why it's important to look at the totality of the research and to be cautious about jumping to conclusions. But with C15, the evidence is starting to paint a pretty compelling picture.
So if we want to learn more about C15 and maybe even increase our intake, where do we go from here?
Well, as we've discussed, full-fat dairy and certain types of seafood are excellent dietary sources. And if you're looking for a more concentrated dose, there are also C15 supplements available.
Supplements. Are they safe? And do they actually work?
As with any supplement, it's essential to talk to your doctor before taking anything. They can help you determine if a C15 supplement is right for you and what dosage is appropriate. As for whether they work, that's where the research gets a bit tricky. More studies are needed to evaluate the effectiveness of C15 supplements and to determine the optimal dosage.
That makes sense. So it's always best to check with your doctor before adding any new supplements to your routine.
Exactly. And I'd add that while supplements can be helpful, it's always best to try to get nutrients from whole food sources whenever possible,
Okay, so focus on those whole foods, full-fat dairy, seafood, grass-fed options when available. But what about those of us who can't or choose not to eat dairy? Are we out of luck when it comes to C15?
Not at all. Remember those seafood sources we talked about? Mullet, catfish, and sea bass are great options. And as research on C15 continues, we may discover even more plant-based sources that can contribute to our intake.
This is all so fascinating. I'm starting to think about C15 like a missing piece of the puzzle when it comes to understanding our health. It seems to have such far-reaching
That's
implications.
a great way to put it. C15 might be that missing link that helps explain some of the health issues we're seeing today. And as we learn more about it, we might even be able to use it to develop new treatments and preventative strategies.
This all sounds promising. But you've also mentioned that the research is still ongoing. What are some of the big unanswered questions about C15? What are researchers still trying to figure out?
One of the big questions is how C15 interacts with other nutrients. For example, we know that omega-3 fatty acids are crucial for heart health, brain function, and reducing inflammation. But how does C15 play into that equation? Do they work together? Do they compete with each other? These are things we need to explore further. So C15 doesn't replace the need for omega-3s. We still need to make sure we're getting enough of those good fats.
Absolutely. Think of C15 and omega-3s as teammates, not competitors. They both play important roles in our health, and we need both for optimal well-being.
Got it. Two essential fatty acids working together for the good of our bodies. What else are researchers looking into when it comes to C15?
Well, they're also trying to determine the optimal dosage for different populations. How much C15 do we need for optimal health? Does it vary based on age, sex, lifestyle factors? These are questions that require more research.
It seems like there's still so much to learn. But that's what makes this all so exciting. I have to say, this deep dive has really changed my perspective on saturated fat. I'm definitely going to be paying more attention to my C15 intake.
I think that's a great takeaway. It's about being mindful of the choices we make and understanding that not all fats are created equal. C15 is a perfect example of that. Well said. I'm already eager to hear what else you have to share about C15. Let's take another quick pause. And when we return, we'll wrap up this deep dive with some final thoughts and takeaways. Welcome back, everyone. I'm still reeling from all this C15 information. It's amazing how much one little fatty acid can shake up our understanding of nutrition.
It really is. You know, it highlights how science is a constantly evolving process. We're always learning new things, and sometimes those discoveries challenge our long-held beliefs. C15 is a perfect example of that.
You know, it makes you wonder what other essential nutrients might be out there, just waiting to be discovered.
That's the beauty of scientific inquiry. There's always more to explore, and each new discovery opens up a world of possibilities for improving human health.
Speaking of possibilities, I'm particularly intrigued by the connection between C15 and the endocannabinoid system. We talk about its potential implications for conditions like chronic pain, anxiety, and sleep disorders. But what about the bigger picture? Could C15 be a key to understanding and addressing these widespread health issues in a new way?
That's a question researchers are actively exploring. If C15 can indeed modulate the endocannabinoid system, it could potentially lead to the development of new therapeutic approaches for a wide range of conditions. Imagine being able to harness the power of this fatty acid to help people manage chronic pain or improve their sleep quality naturally.
That would be revolutionary. But of course, we need more research to confirm these potential benefits and to determine the safest and most effective ways to use C15 therapeutically.
Absolutely. It's important to proceed with caution and to let the science guide us. But the potential is certainly there, and that's what makes this research so exciting.
So what's the main takeaway you want our listener to walk away with from this deep dive?
I'd say the biggest takeaway is that C15 is a potentially essential nutrient that deserves our attention. It seems to play a crucial role in cell health, metabolic function, and possibly even longevity. While more research is needed, the evidence we have so far suggests that ensuring adequate C15 intake could be a valuable part of a healthy lifestyle.
I think that's a great summary. This has been a truly eye-opening deep dive, and I've learned so much about a nutrient I had never even heard of before. It just goes to show that there's always something new to discover in the world of nutrition.
It has. It's been a pleasure exploring this topic with you, and I hope our listener feels empowered to take this knowledge and apply it to their own life.
Before we sign off, I want to leave our listener with one final thought. If C15 is indeed essential, as the research increasingly suggests, what does that tell us about our current understanding of nutrition and dietary guidelines? Do we need to reevaluate our approach to saturated fat? Are there other essential nutrients out there that we're overlooking? These are big questions, but they're worth pondering as we continue to learn and evolve our understanding of health and nutrition.
They are. We need to be open to questioning what we think we know and embrace new discoveries as they emerge.
Well said. This is what the deep dive is all about, exploring complex topics, challenging assumptions, and empowering our listeners with knowledge. Thanks for joining us on this fascinating exploration of C15. Until next time, stay curious and keep diving deep.